My husband, the man who's supposed to stick with me through it all, well, you know what he did? On our third gender reveal party, our third baby we were about to have, he slapped me in front of the whole family and nobody stood up for me. Nobody did a thing about it. And it's all because I haven't gave him a boy yet. That's right, he wants a boy and I've given him 3 girls. Well, you know what? I have something for him because I am over it. I've decided to just come here and share my story because I don't have anyone I can trust. Long story short, my husband slapped me during our child's gender reveal party. Yes, that means I was pregnant when he hit me. The day started off nice. My sister-in-law organized this big gender reveal party for my third baby. Everybody was excited, including me, and things were looking great. She'd gone all out, decking out the backyard with colorful decorations and setting up long tables with delicious treats. There was balloons everywhere. The centerpiece of it all was a beautiful cake, and it was all frosted and white with hints of pink and blue swirls. My sister-in-law wanted all of us to get together around the cake, and when the moment came, my husband would be the one to cut into it. It was cheesy, sure, but I appreciate it. It was a party for my child after all, and my husband took the knife in hand, and when the cake split open, it revealed a burst of pink confetti. Everybody there started clapping and cheering except for me because I knew something bad was coming, and I was looking at my husband very nervous. It didn't take him very long to completely lose it. He starts to scream, telling everyone to shut up. I approached him and told him please calm down, but that made things even worse because he flipped the table, sending the cake crashing down, and it landed on our youngest daughter, who's just 3. The shock of it all hit me like a freight train, guys. I was furious. I pushed him away instinctively, and that's when things took an absolute turn. Well, a very dark turn. He got aggressive, real aggressive, and he slapped me in the face in front of everyone. It wasn't the first time he laid a hand on me, but this time it was the first time in public. It was like a switch flipped inside me, and I barely remember what happened afterward, but I remember my sister-in-law running towards my daughter and making sure that she was okay before grabbing my arms to help me up. Everyone else was just watching. I mean, it was sickening. I stormed inside, and my sister-in-law ran after me and asked my daughter to stay with me. My eldest was 7, and she was already so good at comforting me. In my room, I could still hear the voice of my mother-in-law trying to cheer everybody up. She said something along the lines of, 3 daughters, I mean, can you blame him? Referring to my husband's tantrum, and I'd never felt so helpless and disgusted in all my days. I thought about getting a divorce a lot. I say the tricky part is that I'm dependent on him. I never finished college. Money was always tight in our family, and with my dad's health issues, it just wasn't feasible. I had dreams of going back, but I guess I was just never brave enough to take out a loan or something. And then I met my husband. He was a solid guy. He worked for the government and had his sights set on building a family. I was only 21 when he proposed. He's very big on appearances. My husband always worried about what people may think of him. So when it comes to our marriage, he was adamant that certain things stay under wraps, like the fact that I never finished college. It wasn't a huge deal to me, but he had this whole image to uphold. So I went along with it, and we've been trying to have kids since we got married. 2 daughters later, and we were still trying. My husband has this obsession with having a son. His dad, God rest his soul, was old-fashioned in the worst way possible. He left some hefty inheritance, but only for the first grandson. Like daughters don't count or something. It's not like they were hurting for money or anything, but that inheritance is like dangling carrots for my husband. And it's not just about the money, it's about the twisted idea of a family legacy and all that garbage. For a long time, I tried really hard to get along with it and make my husband happy. Love makes you do crazy things, am I right? Anyways, after what happened at the gender reveal party, I was done. I decided that I should file for divorce and considered suing him for domestic abuse. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was necessary. I couldn't let him get away with it. The tricky part was that guests at the party. They were all his friends and co-workers. I mean, people I barely knew. I lived far away from home, so my support network was limited, if not non-existent even. Well, I didn't know how many of them would be willing to testify against him. It was a daunting prospect facing a room full of people who were loyal to him. Not me. But I knew that I wanted to try. For myself, for my daughters, and for anyone else who might be suffering in silence. So I left home and took my youngest with me and moved back in with my mom. My dad had passed away at this point, and my mom had lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment. It wasn't really an ideal situation, but she was willing to help me out with the babysitting while I looked for a job. I wanted to take my oldest too, but I honestly could not afford for her to miss out on school. She loved going to school, and I didn't have the money for her tuition. Her dad was the provider. When he found out about the lawsuit, my husband's reaction was unexpected. He reached out to me and apologized. Honestly, I'd expected him to throw in an even bigger tantrum, so I guess you could say it was a pleasant surprise. I know I shouldn't have given in that easily, but I guess I was still in love with him. Well, he admitted to his anger issues and begged me to reconsider. It was hard to believe his words at first after everything that had happened, but then he played his trump card. Our girls. He talked about their future and the final security that he could provide for them, and it was a gut-wrenching dilemma. If I went through with the lawsuit and divorced him, I'd either have to move far away from my daughter or subject them to a life of financial struggle. I mean, come on, let's face it, I'd probably not make a lot of money. Eventually, I relented, agreeing to give our relationship another shot, but on a very strict condition. I made it clear that under no circumstances could he ever lay a hand on me again. And to secure my own footing, I requested a monthly allowance before that. Well, he handled all the finances in the family, so I felt like if I wanted to ensure my independence and safeguard my daughter's future, well, I needed to have my own money. Anyways, he went ahead to agree, and I moved back in with him, and I ended up only staying with my mom for 3 months. Well, but things started to change for me after that. With the money that he allowed me to use however I wanted, I signed up for online classes, determined to finish college, and it felt really good. I felt like I started to go ahead and gain back the confidence I didn't know I lost. As I delved into my studies, I started meeting new people, including this guy, who we'll call James. We were just classmates, at first, working on projects together and sharing notes, but I could sense his feelings for me. Although it was really subtle. It was flattering, sure, but also complicating. I mean, I was still married after all, trying to make things work, so this is where things get quite complicated. My mother-in-law never liked me, and when she found out what we were giving our relationship another chance, she hit the roof. She suggested moving in with us under the guise of keeping me in check, as if I needed her constant scrutiny in my own darn home. But my husband said yes, and I felt pressured to compromise because we were supposed to be trying to make things work. Anyways, things took a turn for the worst when she found out about my meetings with James. It was a meeting for a shared project, and everyone had left the call at that point, so we stayed back to chat with each other. We talked about designs and pretty cities, and we were both studying to be architects. And overall, it was a very dreamy thing, but not too remotely romantic. My mother-in-law walked into the room, and, she does that sometimes, and saw James on my laptop screen, and she looked very displeased and asked to talk to me privately. She said that she would turn a blind eye and keep it a secret if I dropped out of my classes. I don't really know what to do because my husband will probably become violent again. When nobody's looking, he could behave very aggressively, and I don't want to go through that, especially when he's probably feeling like he's the best husband in the world for having to, quote, take me back and, quote, provide for me, in my mother-in-law's words. Even though, well, I was being a, quote, ungrateful wife who ran away from her own darn family. Yep, still mother-in-law's words. At the same time, I feel like earning a degree. It could really change my life for the better, and perhaps that for my daughters too. Another concern is that my mother-in-law decides to reveal this to my husband. He would just probably cut off all the allowances, and I'd have to quit anyways. I mean, what do I do? What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. Oh boy, today's story is insane. I mean, we're dealing with an abusive husband. It's so crazy to me. A room full of people witnessed him slap his own wife, and not one person, let alone a guy there, didn't stand up to him. I can't believe that. Why, AITA? Anyways, guys, if you're new to the channel, make sure that you subscribe for daily videos, daily stories, daily animated joy. Let's jump into the first update because I'm coming at you with plenty of updates today, and this one is action-packed. Update number 1. First of all, thank you everyone for your advice. There's this one comment that accuses me of cheating on my husband, which I would like to address. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but there's a lot more to this situation than what meets the eyes. Sure, my husband made an effort to save our relationship, but I don't think it's a good enough reason for me to just forget about all the abuse I faced. Yeah, I formed a close bond with James during a challenging period in my life, but it's purely platonic. He offered me the support and understanding that my husband failed to provide. To be honest, I have little to no emotional support from anyone at all. I'm pretty sure much alone all the time, and my kids are too young to understand what's going on. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the financial aspect, right? You mentioned that I'm taking advantage of my husband's money, just to finish college before leaving him for a younger guy mentioned earlier. Okay, guys, that's fine. Well, how about this? What about the years I sacrificed of my own aspirations to support him and our family? Shouldn't I be entitled to pursue my dreams too? Especially when given the opportunity, but to be fair, I think I forgot to mention that what he did to me was way worse than just a slap at the gender reveal party, although that was the tipping point. He actually cheated on me once, and as far as I know, just a few months into our marriage. So I was pregnant with my oldest, and we just found out that we were going to have a girl. He made out with someone at our work during our company party, and let that woman later message me, confessing that she didn't know that he was married. I know what you're all thinking, guys. Maybe I should have left him right then and there. I was in love, and I didn't want my daughter to grow up without a father. I thought to myself it was just one kiss, right? Maybe he was drunk and he couldn't control himself. He promised to never do it again. Well, I chose to trust him. I think the violent behavior, it started during my pregnancy with the second child. At first, he just threw dishes, lamps, and small pieces of furniture around the house whenever he was angry. Then it evolved into something else. He just hit me for the first time when he came home from work and found that I forgot to do the laundry that day. My eldest had a playdate, and I stayed a little too long at her friend's house, talking to the other parents, and as I typed these words, I realized how much I miss socializing and just having somebody to crack jokes with. It's been a very distressing marriage, and I understand now that I need to get out of here. Okay, now guys, on to the actual update. I've decided to stand up against my mother-in-law. I'm not sure how, but I'll figure it out. But I do believe that getting a degree and a decent job can change everything for me and my daughters. Well, a third-person point of view. What do you guys think that I should do? Update number 2. It's been 8 months, but it feels like so many things have happened because my life is changing at such a quick pace. Anyways, I mustered up the courage to stand up against my mother-in-law. You know, telling her to stay out of my business, and expectedly she told my husband about it, making it sound like I'm having a virtual boyfriend or something. She even chose my class time to tell him just so my husband would barge into my room and actually, quote, catch me red-handed. I didn't turn the window off fast enough, so he saw James, and my husband flew into a rage and lashed out at me, causing me severe physical harm. I will not go into details, but I'll just say that I had to seek medical attention to ensure that my baby was safe, and that no internal organs were damaged. That being said, I want everybody to just understand that I'm not considering a divorce out of convenience or to pursue a fleeting romance. I'm trying to fight for my safety and that of my daughters. I do appreciate anyone who left a comment about their own experience with domestic abuse. Sometimes I feel like I'm going crazy, like I'm the worst mom and wife in the world, but your comments do help me understand that this is not how love and marriage should look. It took me much longer than it should, but I really do believe now that I deserve a lot better. And my daughters deserve a lot better too. I'll be completely honest and admit that James has feelings for me when I was in the hospital. He came to visit twice to share his notes and school stuff. Lucky, when my husband wasn't there, or else we know what would have happened. I think that there were certain points in our conversations where he wanted to address the violence going on in my family, but I didn't feel ready to talk to him about it, especially when he might have harbored feelings for me. It's just too complicated for me to think about right now, but the saddest part was that my husband did not even show up once. He told me that I could go home when I realized what I did was wrong. So I felt like I couldn't go home, but I knew I needed to leave soon, or else the hospital bills would pile up, and that's not good for my husband's temper either. Anyways, I went to my mother's place again, and she's adamant that she's never going to let me go back to that man's house. I mean, what really breaks my heart, though, is that my daughters are still living with my husband and their grandma. I miss them every single day. It's been months since I've last seen them, and, well, their dad won't even let me tell them that, even for just a few minutes, I need to talk to them on the phone. He said that I should fix my attitude before ever going near his family again. They really hurt me. I mean, his family, not mine. I have no friends and almost no money, and honestly, I'm not sure what to do with my life anymore except to finish the courses I signed up for and at least get a degree. Hopefully by that time I'd figured something out. My mom has been a great support to me, and I would not be able to make it through without her. What do you think I should do now? I want my daughter back. Update number 3. Hey, I decided to write another update because something really unexpected has happened. Just when I didn't know what direction to take, somebody reached out to me and offered help, and I'd never expected that they would, but here we are. It was my sister-in-law. Let's call her Maggie. I was having dinner with my mom when she called me, and as soon as I picked up, I heard my older sister's voice on the other line. We talked for about 2 minutes, but honestly, I was in tears for maybe half of the time. Well, she said she misses me a lot. And she's still doing well at school, and she's taking care of her sister for me, and I'm so proud of how mature she is. But I'm also heartbroken just thinking about how she has to mature faster than her peers because she grew up in such a chaotic household. It was really, really hard for me. Anyways, Maggie then took the phone and told me that she secretly arranged the call because she thought my husband was treating me terribly. She also mentioned some sort of a secret she wanted to tell me that she wanted my help with. Honestly, I was really overwhelmed when it happened, so I didn't remember exactly what she said. I just agreed to everything that she asked. She was like a savior to me at that point, and we agreed to meet a few days after that. I'd have to drive for 5 hours to get there. It's okay. I was willing to do anything just for a chance to be close to my girls. When I really think about it, my sister-in-law has always been kind despite how my husband and mother-in-law treat me. She was the one throwing me the gender reveal party, and frankly, almost all of my birthday parties. My husband never cared enough to do anything, but he has the money to fund these activities, and for context, Maggie is in her last year in college. She's a very bright student, but as far as I know, she doesn't have a lot of friends. So I think she has a bright future ahead, being free from loans and all that. We've never been close, though. Perhaps because we don't see each other very much, maybe 2 or 3 times a year during family gatherings. But I guess we've always liked each other in some sort of way. Anyways, I met her at a coffee shop near her campus, and I braced myself for all the possible disasters. But I honestly did not foresee what would happen. She told me that she's pregnant and it was a boy. The baby's going to be the rightful inheritor of whatever her late father had left behind, and, this would sound like good news to her, but there's the tricky part. It turns out my husband has been violent towards his sister, too. She showed me the bruises and threatening text messages. She's worried that my husband might hit her once he finds out that she got knocked up when she was in college. Worse, she's worried that he might want her to get rid of the baby because he wants his future son to be the rightful inheritor. Maggie wants to ask for my help with suing her brother. Oh no, she sounded really, really confident, saying that she had a plan and all that. Well, she had a plan. She said when she was hit the first time, she hid a camera inside a lamp in the living room. She wanted to get it out, but the lamp had been accidentally put in the attic when my mother-in-law moved in and decided to change the decorations of the house. I was shocked to ask her for more details, and we only had half an hour to talk before she had another class. So she asked if I was ready to go to court because she was so scared to sue her own brother. She said her mom would disown her if she found out about it, and then Maggie asked me to find a way to get the camera, take my husband to court and put it into it all. She wants me to claim that the camera to be mine, so she can stay irrelevant and claim the inheritance in peace. At this point, I'm sure if I should trust her. I don't know. But I just don't know if I have another option. I mean, would it be stupid to assume everything she's saying is the truth? What do you guys think? Update number 4. Okay, so having some time to really think it through, I realized that some parts of Maggie's stories don't add up. First of all, she's been too kind to me, but she's always kept a distance from me, I guess to avoid getting involved in her brother's abuse. I'm not sure, but it just doesn't make sense to me how she's risking so many things just to help me get out of the situation. Well, this brings me to my second point at hand. Does she really get hit by her brother? I don't remember her mom ever mistreating her or my husband ever talking about her in a condescending way. I find it really hard to believe that she's dealing with violence. But hey, I mean, why would she lie, right? I couldn't figure out, no matter how hard I think, so I decided to trust her. I told my husband that I have come to my senses and that I want to just try to work things out with him again. I said I wasn't going to class anymore and that I miss my girls dearly. Basically, I was ready to go home, so I lied to my mother and told her I was going on a field trip. I felt terrible about it, but she would not let me go otherwise. Anyways, as soon as I got back to my husband's house, I figured out what was going on. Maggie was there with him, and she told me that she made up the whole thing about the camera to get me to come back home. My husband was really aggressive and was ready to get violent, and Maggie was crying in the corner and her mom was scolding her for crying. It was messy. The gist of it was that my husband was mad I didn't do enough thinking instead of plotting to ruin him. What nobody had expected was that I came prepared. Just when my husband was going to raise his hand at me, somebody banged through the door. It was James. It was the police. My husband was immediately arrested, and I had 2 activities devices in the room. The camera on my laptop was broken, so I used to read the class materials and used my phone to log into the meeting. So James managed to screen record almost everything, having a concrete proof that there was domestic abuse happening in my own home. James hesitated to tell me at first because he didn't know how I would react. You know, about him secretly recording it in a vulnerable, embarrassing moment, let alone rewatching it and possibly bringing it to court. Luckily, I decided to open up to him before going back to my husband's house, and everything looked so certain. Well, there was something in my gut that told me I needed a friend, and that was when James told me about the recording. He asked if I was still in love with my husband and if I still wanted to work things out for the sake of my daughters. He was willing to delete the video forever if I told him to, but I realized that if my husband is not stopped, I'll continue to suffer. And so will my daughters. Anyways, my husband is at the police station, but my mother-in-law will probably bail him out soon. I took both of my daughters to my mom's, and it's not over yet, but I feel like the hardest part is over. Final update, this one came out a lot later. I found it in the comment section. It came out 2 years later. It's an update from OP. My husband was convicted. He went to jail for 7 years and he did not have enough money to pay for a settlement, which totaled $120,000. Maggie testified against him, which is something I seriously did not expect. She felt terrible about lying to me, and I guess that was her way of making it up to me. We talked afterward, and yes, we're on good terms now, which is nice. Well, my husband, he did hit her, although not as severely as he would like to hit me. Their mom turned a blind eye to all of it because, like her late husband, she obviously preferred sons to daughters. That's something I'd probably never understand. Anyways, my mother-in-law now lives alone with no friends or relatives around her, and I guess people were hesitant to be close to her after everything was brought to light. She's doing okay. She still has pension after all, and as much as I can imagine her loneliness and frustration, I don't blame Maggie for making any contact. Maggie deserves to move on and have a good life too. First of all, guys, before we start talking about today's story, I want to do a huge shout out in the comment section for James. James, if you ever come across this story, I want you to know you're a hero for what you did, recording that incident, because honestly, guys, let's be real. If it wasn't for James, I don't think OP would have ever gotten away from her abusive husband, and I don't think that he would have gone to jail. But James, he wasn't having it. Yeah, he might have recorded the incident without her approval, but you know what? He needed to. Guys, let me know your thoughts about it in the comment section down below. My name's Mr. Reddito. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you want more daily videos, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and of course, remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.